Hey everyone. Today, we examine a tragic case of Suzanne Morphew, a 49-year-old woman.
On September 22nd, 2023, Suzanne Morphew's remains were found, 3 years after her sudden disappearance. On May 10th, 2020, the Colorado Bureau of Investigation discovered her remains during a search in Moffat County as part of an unrelated investigation. This discovery brought new hope to the long-unsolved case of Suzanne's disappearance. Her troubled personal life and conflicting accounts of the events initially led investigators to suspect her husband, Barry Morphew, as the likely culprit in what police believed to be a murder. However, new evidence has raised questions about the 2-year investigation. Over 70 investigators contributed more than 1,000 hours of work. 135 search warrants were executed, and over 400 people were interviewed before police charged Barry with first-degree murder. Despite the eventual dropping of the charges due to insufficient evidence and mishandling, many still believed Barry was guilty. However, when Suzanne's remains were discovered 50 miles beyond the original search area and DNA evidence linked her death to a suspected serial killer, new questions emerged. What really happened on the day she vanished? Was Barry Morphew more cunning than investigators believed? Or did someone from Suzanne's personal life play a role in her death? Suzanne Morphew was born on April 11, 1971, to her parents, Jean and Adrian Alexandria. She grew up with 2 brothers, David and Andrew. Those who knew Suzanne described her as intelligent, kind, and deeply thoughtful. In 1988, while still in high school, Suzanne met Barry Morphew. After 6 years of dating, they married. Barry was a talented baseball player, briefly signed by the Toronto Blue Jays. Suzanne pursued a degree in education at Purdue University. However, Barry's sports career ended abruptly due to a serious injury, leading him to switch to horticulture. Suzanne spent 4 years as a teacher before Barry launched his landscaping business, which grew steadily over time. Together, they had 2 daughters, Mallory and Macy, building what seemed like a perfect life in Indiana. Their world shifted when Suzanne was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma. She fought cancer twice and survived. In 2018, the Morphews moved to Maysville, Colorado, seeking a fresh start. They settled on a beautiful 7-acre property, drawn by the outdoors and their daughter Mallory's college nearby. Barry continued his work as a contractor and even became a volunteer firefighter. Suzanne, having retired from teaching, focused on church activities and took up sports, including mountain biking. To outsiders, the Morphews seemed like the perfect family. But beneath the surface, cracks had begun to form, cracks that would become undeniable after May 10, 2020. That day, Mother's Day, began differently at the Morphew residence. Barry and the girls were away, leaving Suzanne alone. Barry claimed he had a landscaping job in Broomfield, a 3-hour drive from Maysville. The girls had gone on a camping trip. According to Barry, they all planned to return home that evening to celebrate Mother's Day with Suzanne. But Suzanne would never be seen alive again. However, the planned celebration never happened. That evening, Mallory and Macy sent their mother a Mother's Day message but received no reply. This was unusual. Suzanne was always active on social media. They expected to see pictures from her best friend's daughter's wedding, knowing she would be on her phone. Hours passed, and still no response. Growing concerned, the girls reached out to their neighbor, Martin Ritter, and his wife, asking them to check on Suzanne. Mrs. Ritter arrived at the Morphew house between 4 o'clock and 4:30 p.m. The house was empty. She immediately called Barry, who told her to look for Suzanne's mountain bike. If it was missing, he instructed her to contact the police. She did exactly that. Officers arrived at the Morphew residence, while Barry and his daughters rushed back, desperate for answers. Within hours, investigators found their first major clue discovery that changed the course of the investigation. Two deputies located Suzanne's mountain bike at the bottom of a steep ravine not far from the house. At first glance, it seemed like an accident, but something did not add up. The bike showed no signs of a crash. There were no skid marks, no damage to the frame, no blood. The surrounding vegetation was untouched. It became clear someone had placed the bike there. When Barry was informed, his reaction was strange. He put forward a bizarre theory. Suzanne had been attacked by a mountain lion. This was just the first of many odd explanations he would give investigators. Barry's behavior raised suspicion. In a secretly recorded conversation with YouTuber Tyson Draper, he doubled down on his mountain lion theory. Meanwhile, Suzanne's brother, Andrew, was organizing search efforts, but Barry was nowhere to be seen. Andrew did not believe Suzanne went missing on May 10th. He suspected something had happened the day before. Then, another critical piece of evidence surfaced. Suzanne's helmet was found 1 mile from the Morphew home in the exact direction. Barry's truck had traveled that morning. Investigators might have dismissed it as a coincidence, but there was one problem. It was in the opposite direction of the Broomfield construction site Barry claimed he was heading to. In his initial interview, Barry said he woke up at 4:30 a.m. and left directly for Broomfield. But forensic data from his Ford F350 told a different story. Before heading to the job site, he had driven 1 mile west right toward the spot where Suzanne's helmet was later found. When Barry was confronted with the data, he gave a convenient explanation. He claimed he had been scouting elk around 4:30 a.m., trying to see which direction they were headed so he could track them later. Apparently, Barry had a habit of tranquilizing elk and removing their antlers for sale. But there was a problem. If he was just waking up at 4:30 a.m., how could he have been out spotting elk? When officers pointed this out, Barry changed his story. He now claimed he had not set his alarm at 4:30 and had woken up on his own. When asked about the day Suzanne disappeared, Barry painted a picture of a perfect day. He said he was working with a co-worker in Salida that morning, returned home early, went on a hike with Suzanne, grilled steaks, and spent an intimate evening with her. He claimed they went to bed together and suggested it might have been the last time they saw each other. But Barry was not a reliable witness. Investigators soon realized he had lied about nearly everything that happened that night. His phone and vehicle data exposed inconsistencies in his story. On May 9th, while Barry and Suzanne did spend time together, the details did not match his version of events. The first major red flag appeared between 2:42 and 2:44 p.m. Barry's phone data showed erratic movements around the property. When questioned, he offered another strange excuse. He said he was hunting chipmunks with a tranquilizer gun. At 2:47 p.m., he switched his phone to airplane mode and did not turn it back on until 10:17 p.m. Even the steak dinner he claimed to have shared with Suzanne seemed questionable. Investigators found only one dirty plate, not two. And later that night, more strange details emerged. At 9:30 p.m. an hour after Barry claimed to have gone to sleep, his truck suddenly reversed 96 feet down the driveway. Investigators suspected this could have been when he loaded Suzanne's body into his vehicle. Then, between 3:25 and 3:48 a.m., his truck's door opened and closed more than 80 times. Though circumstantial, the evidence suggested Barry was hiding something. Investigators then turned their attention to May 10th. Barry claimed he had a job in Broomfield that day, but his co-workers told a different story. The contract was not set to begin for another week. There was no project to inspect. Barry's movements that day raised even more questions. He checked into the Holiday Inn, briefly visited the job site, stopped at a store for granola and water, and went to McDonald's only to clean his windshield. Nothing about his story made sense. However, surveillance footage obtained by the Colorado Bureau of Investigation contradicted Barry's account. He was seen disposing of 5 trash bags near McDonald's and the Holiday Inn. When confronted with the footage, Barry gave another odd explanation. He claimed he was simply cleaning his car and wanted to avoid disposal fees. But his story quickly fell apart. Investigators checked his car and found no evidence of a deep cleaning. A co-worker later reported a strong smell of bleach and chlorine in Barry's hotel room a day after Suzanne vanished. Even more suspicious, Barry changed his clothes multiple times throughout that day. As alarming as his actions were, investigators still struggled to find a clear motive. That changed when they looked deeper into Barry and Suzanne's personal lives. Their daughters revealed that things were not as perfect as Barry wanted people to believe. Text messages recovered from Suzanne's phone told a different story. Calling their marriage troubled would be an understatement. Suzanne was deeply unhappy and wrote in her notes app about how Barry refused to even consider divorce. She kept a list of grievances that suggested a pattern of physical abuse. She wrote that she feared being alone in a room with him, worried about his drinking, and suspected he was unfaithful. She even mentioned his repeated attempts to take away her phone. When police searched the Morphew house on May 20th, they discovered something chilling. Suzanne had bought a spy pen to catch her husband in the act. Ironically, it recorded her affair instead of his. Suzanne had been seeing a man named Jeff, an old high school acquaintance. The affair had reportedly been going on for over a year and a half, starting in 2018. While Jeff seemed like an obvious suspect, police quickly cleared him of any involvement. Investigators believed Barry had discovered the affair, and a note Suzanne wrote just 2 days before her disappearance supported their theory. In it, Barry accused her of having a boyfriend. The spy pen played a crucial role, but it was not the only disturbing piece of evidence found inside the Morphew home. Investigators uncovered a tranquilizer dart cap in the family's dryer, a spent bullet casing in the bedroom, a large crack in the doorframe, and what appeared to be the burned remains of Suzanne's journal in the fireplace. Taken together with the telematic data, this evidence painted a chilling picture. Investigators suspected Barry had planned Suzanne's murder and killed her on the afternoon of May 9, 2020. Suzanne's phone records supported this theory. After sending her boyfriend 53 messages and a selfie at 2:10 p.m., she never used her phone again. The public did not learn that Barry was a suspect until 2 weeks later, when police conducted a 2-day excavation at a construction site in Salida, one of Barry's job sites. In response, Barry released a bizarre video proclaiming his innocence. But the investigation pressed on May 5, 2021, nearly a year after Suzanne's disappearance. Barry Morphew was finally arrested. The evidence against him was largely circumstantial, but with his inconsistent stories, repeated lies, and a clear motive, prosecutors felt confident in their case. Barry was charged with first-degree murder, tampering with evidence, possession of a dangerous weapon, and attempting to influence a public servant. But that was not all. He was also charged with election fraud after filing a fraudulent ballot in Suzanne's name. When questioned, Barry claimed he did not know it was illegal and said Trump could use the extra vote. He later pleaded guilty and paid a $600 fine. In August 2021, a preliminary hearing was held to determine if Barry's case would go to trial. Over 4 days, prosecutors laid out the damning evidence they had gathered. They theorized that Barry had killed Suzanne on May 9th, dismembered her in a hotel room, disposed of the tools, and buried her in an unmarked grave. Barry's defense had its own story to tell. However, the defense pushed back hard, tearing holes in the prosecution's narrative. They pointed out that cadaver dogs failed to detect any human remains in Barry's car or the hotel room where he supposedly hid Suzanne's body. They also questioned the discovery of the tranquilizer dart cap, suggesting it may have been planted. Photos of the dryer raised more doubts. One image showed the cap inside, while another did not. The defense further argued that Barry could not have used his dart gun to incapacitate Suzanne because it was broken at the time. With these challenges, the case against Barry was beginning to crack. The defense team's most powerful argument came from a shocking DNA discovery. Partial DNA samples found in Suzanne's Range Rover and on her bike helmet did not match Barry. Even more concerning, the DNA from her car matched profiles from 3 unsolved sexual assault cases in Chicago and Arizona. This raised serious doubts about Barry's involvement. Why was this crucial evidence not brought up earlier? A CBI investigator had collected it, but went on military leave before following up. To make matters worse, the prosecution had not disclosed this information to the defense, meaning they withheld potentially exculpatory evidence. With the existence of an unidentified suspect, the defense argued there was no solid proof Barry killed Suzanne. They pushed for a swift ruling, but the judge delayed, citing the immense time and resources put into the case. On September 7th, the judge allowed the case to proceed, setting Barry's bail at $500,000. He walked free on September 20th, 2021, 9 days before the trial. The prosecution unexpectedly filed a motion to dismiss all charges without prejudice, allowing them to refile if new evidence emerged. Without a body, lingering doubts, and prosecutorial misconduct, a conviction seemed unlikely. The world was stunned when Barry left the courthouse, smiling, his daughters by his side. Then, on September 22, 2023, investigators uncovered several shallow graves in Moffat, Colorado. Using dental records and a chemotherapy port, they identified Suzanne's remains over 50 miles from where authorities had originally searched. Now, new questions arise. Could Barry still be a suspect? Police confirm his truck was never in Moffat on May 9th or 10th. However, some speculate he may have had help or disposed of her body later. If investigators obtain extended phone and vehicle data, they might connect him to the burial site. But for now, Barry Morphew remains a free man. However, law enforcement and the district attorney's office have not given up. The district attorney of the 12th Judicial District told CNN that the case remains under investigation and that she cannot comment further until more details emerge. However, officials have offered their condolences to Suzanne's family. Barry's attorney, Iris Ayton, has been outspoken since the discovery of Suzanne's remains. She suggests that Suzanne may have been the victim of a serial killer, as her body was found in what she calls a boneyard. Ayton insists Barry was wrongfully accused and hopes law enforcement will eventually admit their mistake. Meanwhile, Barry has taken legal action. He has filed a $15 million lawsuit against prosecutors, sheriff's departments, and investigators, claiming he was wrongfully charged in the disappearance and death of his wife. If you found this case as shocking as we did, make sure to like this video, share it with others, and subscribe to our channel. Also hit that notification bell for more true crime stories. Your support helps us bring you the latest updates on unsolved mysteries and criminal investigations. Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Do you think justice was served in this case? We want to hear from you.